escape from the evening rain. When I left E-Town this morning, there was a positive sighting of the sun. It lasted apparently till we got to about Hodgenville. I don't know. I hope it's still there when we get back for tomorrow morning. But wow, it's great to see all of you here. This is one of the high points of our year, is the annual Founders Day dinner, and we have a spectacular program this evening. I'm Jim Fugit. I'm chair of the development committee, if you haven't seen me over the past 20 years. This is sort of all the usual suspects this year. But we do want to get started. Sarah Calhoun, a nursing junior from Lexington, Kentucky, is going to have our invocation.
Please bow your heads and pray with me. Dear Lord, thank you for being with us during this time of fellowship. We ask you to bless this meal and the conversations that come with it. Thank you for those who have given of themselves in support of Lindsey College and its mission. Thank you for Dr. Begley and the many ways he has impacted this community. Bless him as he speaks this evening. May his words inspire us and remind us of how special this college is. We ask that you continue to bless this institution. May we use these gifts to further your kingdom. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
From every soul comes a noble dream. Justice like a mighty stream. Mighty stream, like a mighty stream. Mighty stream. Let justice roll. Let justice roll. Let justice roll. Like a mighty stream. Oh, every trial will overcome. When every child beneath the sun, and every soul shall live as one. The noble dream has just begun. Mighty stream, like a mighty stream, like a mighty stream. Let justice roll. Let justice roll. Let justice roll. Like a mighty stream. Mighty stream. Mighty stream.
Computer shut down.
Let justice roll. Let justice roll. Like a mighty stream. Mighty stream. Mighty stream. Let justice roll. Let justice roll. Let justice roll. Like a mighty stream. Mighty stream. Mighty stream. Like a mighty stream. Let justice roll. Let it roll. Let justice roll. Let it roll. Let justice roll. Like a mighty stream.
Fantastic. Lindsey College Singers, 6:30 p.m., Sunday, May 6th. Let's welcome again the Lindsey Singers.
Like I hear the heart's eternal ringing We are indeed grateful for your invitation to be here this evening. Thank you for having us. And we've had such special opportunities throughout the years to work with Dr. Begley. For example, this past October, we enjoyed celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Begley Chapel. And Dr. Begley, during your message at that occasion, where we tried to replicate what happened 20 years before, the service was outside. The music was similar to what was done at the dedication. He made mention of a certain scripture that we would like to reference in this piece. Maybe it is the mission of Lindsey Wilson College.
If you haven't invited the Lindsey Wilson singers to your church, I encourage you to do that. Dr. Chapin and the group have quite a ministry in the Kentucky Annual Conference, presenting in churches and very meaningful. It's been the memorial, and it was a superb evening, so I encourage you to give some thought to that. Well, without further ado, let me introduce our head table, beginning to my right, which would be your left. At the end, we have Lucretia Begley, the artist and former First Lady. Next to her, Dr. John Begley, who will be introduced later so that you can get his background. And next to Dr. Begley is Elise Lucky, our current First Lady. Next to Elise is Bill Lucky, the longest-serving college president in the history of higher education. Then to my left and your right, beginning on the end, Gabby Piles. Gabby is a Human Services and Counseling Ministries junior here at Lindsey, and she's from Campbellsville. Next to her is Patrick Atkins, a junior in business administration from Glasgow, Kentucky. And next to Patrick, my wife, Helen Lee Huget from Elizabethtown. We have to put the plug in. So that's it for the head table. We have had a great trustees meeting today. A lot of really monumental decisions and input, and we want to recognize our trustees that are here with us this evening. If you'd stand, please. Dr. P. Let's stand up. Let's get the trustees standing. We have some new Begley Scholars as well as some former Begley Scholars with us this evening. Would all the Begley Scholars please stand? Great group. And we have, usually with us this evening, a new group. We're delighted to have with us tonight a group of Christian businessmen and women representing an organization called the Breakfast with Bread Leadership Institute. And their mission is to stretch and bless the next generation of leaders to the glory of God. Tomorrow afternoon and Saturday morning, they will be meeting with a select group of Lindsey Wilson students to engage them in in-depth conversations and ideas presented by Fred Smith Sr. We are especially pleased to have them here tonight as our guests, and we want to thank them for doing this for our Lindsey Wilson students. Would you please rise? Thanks so much for coming. We appreciate it. And of course, our meal this evening is always prepared by our dining staff. They disappear when the singers come out because they don't want to interrupt the service and have a hard time getting them back out here. But Jeff Willis, our food director, and Joanne Panko and the crew, are you back there? Does anybody see them? Now listen, this is serious work that these people do, all of the staff here at the dining facility. You know, at a number of colleges and universities across the United States, food service is a lost business. The fees do not amount to the cost associated with food delivery, and it's a source of cost to the university. Here at Lindsey Wilson, the dining service is the largest contributor to Lindsey Wilson College. Last year, their financial contribution to the college was over $3.5 million. That's a result of hours of catering, hours of helping and serving in the community with food service, and it really is a tremendous function here at Lindsey that we're always thankful for. Well, that concludes the introductions, and without further ado, we'll let Patrick Atkins come up and tell us what got him from Glasgow to Kentucky to Campbell, to Columbia, wherever else. Don't have lived too much, that's why.
Well, thank you so much. Well, good evening. My name is Patrick Atkins, and I'm a junior from Glasgow, Kentucky. I'm majoring in business administration with an emphasis in accounting, and I'm minoring in communication. When I was first asked to speak tonight, my mind immediately began to reminisce on all the opportunities I've been given here. But if I told you about all my experiences, we'd be here for hours, so I'm going to attempt to keep it short. It all started back when I was a junior at Glasgow High School. I was fortunate enough to be getting looked at by several colleges to play football. I remember visiting 4 consecutive colleges in 3 weekends. And Lindsey Wilson was the last college on this little road trip. I also remember being sick and tired of visiting colleges by the end of the trip. But I knew that the trip to Lindsey Wilson was really special to my mom, Julie Atkins, because she graduated from LWC in 1983. She was known as Julie Kingery back then, and she actually received the President's Award from Dr. Begley and was named Miss Lindsey Wilson College. Needless to say, I put on my best game face for her while we were there. But when we arrived on campus, my apathy soon turned into enthusiasm. Every person that we met that day had a true passion for LWC, and I could tell that there was something different about this place. I know this might sound a little cliche, but I could picture myself walking on the sidewalks to class, hanging out on the quad with friends, and gaining the knowledge and experience necessary to be successful here. From that visit, I knew that Lindsey Wilson College is where I wanted to spend the next 4 years of my life. And there's a common saying on campus that says that LWC is family. I could tell that day that everybody on this campus truly embodied that saying. And the best part about Lindsey Wilson is the connection students can make here. One connection I've made is with Linda McKinley Grider, who is the director of the Center for Entrepreneurship. During my freshman advising meeting with Ms. Grider, she said that I seemed like a nice young man with a lot of goals and ambition. So she challenged me to take one of her business classes. Well, my first impression of her was that she was very professional and honest, and I wanted that for myself. So I accepted her challenge, decided to major in business, and I haven't looked back. One of my favorite memories is when Ms. Grider selected 6 business students and 6 sustainability students and sent us to Atlanta, Georgia to spend the week, where we toured Coca-Cola headquarters, CNN headquarters, and collaborated with students from Clark Atlanta University to develop an eco-friendly business project. Our project was to recycle used plastic bottles and convert those into wearable caps and gowns for our seniors to graduate in. I also participate in work study through the Office of Admissions, and getting to work under Tracy Pooler has allowed me to grow in so many ways. Not only is she a great boss, but a great mentor as well. She is the perfect example of a servant leader and is one of the hardest workers that I've ever seen. Yet she still goes out of her way to help anybody at any time. She also comes up with some creative ways for me and my friends to have fun. Whether it's participating in an Easter egg hunt where we're tied to a partner, costume parties for Halloween, or just having us over to relax and enjoy a nice home-cooked meal. Mrs. Pooler does it all. And most importantly, she bakes the most delicious cookies I've ever tasted. So from working with her in admissions and becoming best friends with her son, honestly, she has become like a second mother to me, and I'll always look up to her. Another person I look up to on campus is Dr. Gerald Chafin, the leader of the Lindsey Wilson College Seniors. I met Dr. Chafin early in my career because both of my roommates were in seniors. I remember being secretly jealous because they would always talk about how much fun they would have. Not to mention they got to travel to Hawaii in 2016 to sing at the 75th commemoration of Pearl Harbor. Well, one day Dr. Chafin emailed me and asked if I could stop by his office. When I showed up, he was sitting in his office on the piano. He told me to come over next to him and try and sing as he played. I didn't have much confidence in my singing at all, but I gave it a try. And after that, he asked me if I wanted to join the Lindsey Wilson Seniors. And without hesitation, I said yes. And so we actually just got back from our spring tour where we flew to Dallas, Texas and toured all the way up the heart of the country to Omaha, Nebraska. And along the way, we stopped at Oklahoma City and visited the site of the Oklahoma City bombing. While we were there, we got to see something called the Survivor Tree, which is a tree that stood next to the federal building that was bombed, yet it withstood the blast and remained standing. So the singers stood under that tree and sang a song called Canticle of Hope, which was originally written for the people of Oklahoma City after the bombing. It was a very humbling experience. And Dr. Chafin also participated in his 600th concert for Lindsey Wilson College while we were on tour. He has such a kind heart, and I'm very thankful to him for all the opportunities he's given me to sing, travel, and learn as we go along. The thing that has made my experience so special is definitely the connections that I've made with faculty, staff, and my peers. From playing slip and slide kickball on the quad, to watching fireworks shows over the chapel, couch nights at the soccer games, laminating our notes and studying for exams in the hot tub, and everything in between. I've made some unforgettable memories. When I was 6 years old, I was diagnosed with leukemia. In 3 long, difficult years, I was able to beat cancer at age 9. While I was in remission, I made a promise to myself that I would do everything I can to make the most of life and live it to the fullest. And I tell you this not so you'll feel sorry for me, but so you'll understand that I chose Lindsey Wilson College to fulfill that promise. I know that there are those of you tonight, and many who could not be with us, who share that same love for Lindsey Wilson that I do. I'm grateful for those who have come before me and those who will come after me, who will ensure the lasting strength of our school. Lindsey Wilson College has impacted my life in a major way, and I'll always be thankful for that. I now understand and embody the saying, LWC is family. And I'm so glad to meet so many more of the members of the LWC family here tonight. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Very inspirational. Well, our next speaker is from Campbellsville, Kentucky, Gabby Biles. And as I mentioned earlier, she's a Human Services and Counseling and Christian Ministries junior. So help me in welcoming Gabby Biles.
Counseling and Christian Ministries. So growing up in Campbellsville, I always thought I wanted to move away and experience college life on my own, away from family and familiar faces. However, as I started looking more into schools, I realized that there was really no part of me that wanted to move away from my family. I knew I wanted to stay close, so the plan was to go to Campbell's University. But for some reason, I just never felt peace there. So a week before my high school graduation, I decided to apply to Lindsey Wilson. I'll never forget the moment I stepped on to Lindsey Wilson College's campus for the first time and instantly felt the peace of God permeate my entire being. Even though it was too late to apply for any scholarships like Begley or Bonner, God knew what He was doing, and He created a way for everything to be covered for me. A few of the people who had a big impact on my decision to come to LWC were Charity Ferguson and the cheerleading coach Damon Hicks. Charity was always available when I had questions, and she did everything to make sure I was prepared, even with how last minute I was with my decision. Still to this day, I know that I can go to her for anything. And my cheerleading coach made me feel so welcome and right at home. I knew from the beginning that this is where the Lord wanted me. So I've always been one to be involved in lots of different things, which is exactly what has happened during my past few years here. I'm on the cheerleading team, I'm a Bonner Scholar, a member of the Lindsey Wilson Singers, a student ambassador where I give campus tours, a peer mentor, a writing fellow, and also involved in multiple Christian ministry events, including FCA that I started with a friend of mine last spring on campus. With the Bonner Scholars Program, I've gone on 4 service trips out of state to New York City, St. Augustine, Florida, Black Mountain, North Carolina, and Detroit, Michigan during my summer of service. I've also been able to get involved in the community, volunteering at different sites, and have found my passion for working with kids to be even more true. Since I've been in Singers, we've gone on 3 tours. We are asked to be the representatives from Kentucky for the 75th commemoration of the attacks on Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, which was an absolutely incredible experience. We also went on a tour last spring to southern states, and this spring break, we traveled to Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, and Arkansas. And while all of these trips and experiences have been amazing, the best by far was my mission trip to the Dominican Republic that I was blessed to go on with the Christian Ministry Department last summer. After experiencing God in such a fresh and new way, I knew it was something I wanted to continue doing. So this summer, I'll be traveling to the DR once again for a 5-week internship through Go Ministries. All praise to God for this opportunity I've been given to travel and love on His beautiful children, and also be loved and filled up by Him and the wonderful people there. Well, I could go on and on about all the experiences I've had at Lindsey Wilson that have had a profound impact on my life. That's really not what this is about. I believe my purpose for being here tonight on this stage is to remind each and every one of you of your importance and value to my school. You see, I've been to a lot of places in my 20 short years of life. I've met a lot of people, experienced lots of events and conferences, and been to lots of other colleges and communities. But none of them portray an atmosphere quite like Lindsey Wilson. The best way for me to explain Lindsey Wilson is it's kind of like a church. You know, a church is not the building or the sanctuary, and it's not even about the preacher or singing hymns. The church is the people of God who serve one common goal, to love the Lord and His beautiful children while furthering the kingdom. Similarly, Lindsey Wilson is not about this campus. We sure do have a beautiful one, but it's not about the campus or extracurricular activities or even the academic programs that are offered. Instead, it's all about the people who are a part of my college who pour their lives into the mission and to the service of my second home. For me, it has been people like Amy Thompson-Wells, who loves on everyone she comes in contact with and is an inspiration to so many. And it's been Crystal Cundiff. I do not think I've met someone who loves students more than this woman. I'm so thankful for Crystal for many reasons, but mostly that she makes herself available for me and others, anytime, any day. It has been Dr. Chapin and his wonderful wife, Sonia, who are the real reason why Singers has been the biggest blessing of my college experience. I don't even know how to explain how much they mean to me. Dr. Chapin has such a kind soul that truly radiates the love of Jesus with everything he does. And I've also been blessed to spend lots of time with Sonia, volunteering at PEP and in her virtuous women Bible study that she has with us girls and singers. And I've also been touched by the Christian Ministries faculty leaders I have at LWC, like Dr. Calhoun, Ms. Carroll, Troy Elmore, and Dr. Swan. I've been encouraged to do lots of self-reflecting and soul-searching, which is something I always struggle doing. Each day when I walk across campus, I experience God in a new way. During my 3 years here, I've gone through many significant life changes and hard seasons, but never once did I feel alone. Never once have I felt uncared for or unloved. Because of the Lord, I have found hope and a reason to live. And because of Lindsey Wilson and the wonderful people here, I have been led straight to the feet of Jesus to slowly uncover his plan for my life. Throughout this growing stage, there is absolutely no other place I'd rather be than here amidst incredible world changers who are truly making a difference every day. If it were not for LWC, I would not be the Gabby Piles that you see here tonight. My experience at LWC has transformed who I am and has deepened my desire and passion to assist in helping each person see their worth and purpose in this world. It's because of the many men and women sitting in front of me now, and others, that I'm able to have this incredible experience here at Lindsey Wilson. So to all of you, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you do. Thank you for not giving up on the mission of this school. Thank you for continuing to invest your time, money, and other resources to ensure that more students, just like me, are able to grow and learn while being filled with love daily. Thank you for your selfless hearts. And most of all, thank you for believing in us. Thank you for believing in me and my fellow classmates enough to support our education. Just know that we are getting much more than just an academic education. This institution is creating well-rounded, successful individuals who are prepared for anything the world may throw our way. You are all a vital part in building us up and helping us see a bright future. I would like to close today by reading one of my favorite stories that always inspires me, and I pray that it speaks to you in a way that does me. Once upon a time, there was an old man who used to go to the ocean to do his writing. He had a habit of walking on the beach every morning before he began his work. Early one morning, he was walking along the shore after a big storm had passed, and he found the vast beach littered with starfish as far as the eye could see, stretching in both directions. Off in the distance, the old man noticed a small boy approaching. As the boy walked, he paused every so often, and as he grew closer, the man could see that he was occasionally bending down to pick up an object and throw it into the sea. The boy came closer still, and the man called out, "Good morning, may I ask what it is that you're doing?" The young boy paused, looked up, and replied, "I'm throwing starfish into the ocean. The tide has washed them up onto the beach, and they can't return to the sea by themselves. When the sun gets high, they will die unless I throw them back into the water." The old man replied, "But there must be tens of thousands of starfish on this beach. I'm afraid you won't really be able to make much of a difference." The boy bent down, picked up yet another starfish, and threw it as far as he could into the ocean. Then he turned, smiled, and said, "It made a difference to that one." So no matter what area you are currently serving and supporting Lindsey Wilson, just know that you are making a difference. Even if it's just to one student's life, that's enough. Thank you again.
Is that a tough act to follow or what? Oh my Lord, Doc, you can just go ahead and talk if you want to. Thank you, Gabby and Patrick, for sharing so beautifully. They did such an incredible job. You know, Gabby just lights up a room with her smile, which is only every single time that I see her, while Patrick is just so genuine and authentic. Let's express our appreciation to them one more time. all of you and to share this moment with my dear friend and mentor, John Begley, who, by the way, celebrated his inauguration exactly 39 years ago today. Can you imagine that? Yeah. You know, one of my great strengths as a president is to have a feeling for the situation and the audience. Now, whether that's a conversation between just the two of us, or whether it's a crowd of several hundred people like tonight. And tonight, while I'm sandwiched between our precious students that you just heard from, and John Begley, the man who literally transformed this college, I must admit, I'm feeling a little bit like Zsa Zsa Gabor's ninth husband, fairly insignificant. So at the risk of going beyond good judgment, let me just quickly lift up a few noteworthy accomplishments. Our volleyball team went 35-0 and won the NAIA National Championship. With a roster full of kids from Louisville, including the National Player of the Year, Mackenzie Montano. Amanda McGeorge from Monroe County and Austin Matney from Greene County were both accepted into medical school at the University of Kentucky, Bowling Green campus. Our new doctoral program in counselor education and supervision received its national accreditation from KCREP, and our 4-year nursing program received its national accreditation from CCNE, the gold standard in nursing accreditation. Ollie Hensley from Somerset, Kentucky, was accepted to Auburn's veterinarian school, where they only accept 6 out of 600 out-of-state applications. Pretty remarkable. We have a fundraising campaign ending June the 30th of this year with a goal of $40 million, and we are so close that we can literally smell the finish line. Now, we have 64 days left, including Saturdays and Sundays, and we need your help to knock the top off this campaign as we blow past the goal. And finally, as Jim Fugit mentioned, many of our singers just returned this week from a performance at Carnegie Hall. Now, that's a pretty good year. That is a pretty good year, and we're just scratching the surface. Thank you. Now, I told you that I'm good at reading audiences, and I know you're ready to hear from John Begley, but I've got one more thing that I want to say. You understand, Doc, that the two of us, that this is not supposed to work. There are literally dozens of books that have been written on the college presidency, emphatically stating that one of the keys to a successful presidency is making sure to get your predecessor out of the way. I mean, just kick all of that wisdom and that experience and that knowledge, just kick it to the curb. In fact, many of the books will say that you can never really function as the president as long as your predecessor is around. In fact, just down the road at the University of the Cumberlands, a person who served as the president for 35 years before becoming the chancellor is now suing the university over a salary dispute. And the tight-knit relationship between the new president, which was handpicked by the old president, that relationship between the new president and the chancellor in the university is permanently and sadly severed. Doc, I am so grateful that you have been my strongest and my most vocal supporter during my presidency, but then again, you and I always knew that that would work. We always knew it would work. Elise and I were at the home place recently between Columbia and Campbellsville off of Highway 55 to watch some of our students perform a scene from Macbeth. And at the end of the performance, an elderly gentleman approached me and he said, "You're Lindsey Wilson now, aren't you?" "Well, yes, sir, I am," I responded. And then he said, Now, aren't you the president? Well, yes, sir, I am, I responded. Begley, right? Yes, sir. I didn't have the heart to tell him otherwise. But just think about that for a moment. He left the presidency in 1997. Bill Clinton was in office in 1997. And do you have any idea how many times that happens? It just speaks volumes about the shadow that this giant projects and the impact that he's had on this region. And you know, I gotta tell you, Doc just loves to poke me about those things. He loves to poke. We'll be riding down the road together and he'll get this big mischievous grin on his face and then he'll say, you know, I'm so glad we started football while I was president. Except when he says I, he doesn't mean me, he means him. Then he'll say, I'm so glad that I started marching band and nursing and wrestling and swimming. I'm so glad I built that Holloway Health and Wellness Center and the Fugate Science Center and the Gooden Nursing Building, the football, baseball, and softball stadiums, Smith Hall, the golf course, and whatever you do, don't forget about the fairgrounds. And then he'll just burst out laughing. That's not very nice, is it, Jim? Alan, not very Christian, is it? It was former Vanderbilt Chancellor Alexander Hurd who once said, if ever I have a claim to boldness in this life, it is the willingness to follow in this wake. In fact, if I were to alter that, to follow in his wake. For if I happen to see further into the future than my predecessors, it is because I am standing on the shoulders of giants. It is because I am standing on the shoulders of giants. Doc, I love you, and I'm so glad we never listened to those experts and kicked you to the curb. This new kid is now the longest, I know you make fun of me, but is now the longest serving president, either private or public, in Kentucky higher education. I think this experiment might just work. We have a video tribute that we would like to share introducing tonight's keynote speaker, so enjoy. We're going to try to dim the lights if we can. Thank you. This may actually work. I hope this does.
It's hard to believe that I've known John Begley for 35 years and he's completing his 40th year of service to this college. He's been an incredible president in so many ways and a leader at this college. He's transformed this place.
It was like the difference between a still photograph and a colored moving picture. I mean, the change. There was the still photo with things static, just this way. You always saw them the same way. When you went back there, again, to no one's discredit, it's just the fact of the support at that time. And then John moved in, and it seemed like a colored film. Things started moving, and things took on color and life. And that was the impression I always had.
There is a difference at Lindsey Wilson College. It's a difference that's made us the fastest growing independent college in Kentucky for 6 years in a row. That's a tremendously big claim. but it's true. So we must be doing something right. I'm proud of Lindsey Wilson. I'm proud of our administration, our faculty, and most especially of our students.
All you have to do is look around and see the buildings that weren't here before his arrival. The Crammer Dining Center that we're in tonight, the Turner Building, the Crawley Student Union Building, Richardson Hall, Lilly Hall. I could go on and on and on listing differences that he's made just in the physical appearance of this campus. Probably the most dramatic impact, though, is that he created a vision for this place. He understood that this place needed to have a mission that he could communicate and sell others on his dreams for what he hoped to accomplish here. And quite honestly, he believed in this place when nobody else did.
I remember back in 1978, I guess it was, when we first started trying to put a college together and trying to sell the college to the community and to donors and to prospective students. And we had deficit budgets and we were struggling with finances in a pretty serious way. But I went out and purchased a brass rail and had it installed in the entranceway, the steps going up into the administration building. And I really thought that it may have been a serious mistake at first because no one seemed to understand why. But the primary purpose was to communicate to the faculty and to the staff and to the trustees and to our constituents that this is a symbol of what can happen at Lindsey Wilson College if we work hard and work smart, if we search for friends and funds and freshmen with aggression, we'll do well.
John Begley's always taught me that there's a price to pay for leadership. And he certainly paid that price. He was dictatorial about the mission and dictatorial about the dream. He didn't have time for faculty governance and consultative management. He couldn't be people's friends sometimes. He had to make tough decisions, and he's paid that price physically. When you think about having quadruple bypass, high blood pressure, stomach ulcer, sleep apnea, on and on and on. He's so much healthier today than when he left the presidency 20 years ago. Yeah. You know, it's so funny. When I arrived here in 1983, I was terrified of John Begley. If I saw him walking down the sidewalk, I would head the other direction because I didn't want to bump into him. But, and others, you know, many others had that same response. So it's so funny today to see this loving, sweet, grandfatherly figure who's so sweet and loving and warm. And he was loving then, but it was a tough love. I remember him saying, "You're lucky, your dress shirt's coming out of the back of your pants. I mean, you've got to buy dress shirts with a longer tail on them." You know, he would talk to me about my tie. My ties were too short. You've got to buy long ties. I hadn't thought much about what I was supposed to say, and I got to tell you, I was absolutely awful. I mean, I just completely bombed. And he was out in the crowd, and he made me a little nervous. And I saw him later, about 30 minutes after I'd had this presentation, and he said to me, first of all, I said, "Doc," I said, I didn't do very well, did I? And he said, "No." He said, "Bill, I got to tell you, that may have been the worst speech that I've ever heard." But then he told me, he said, "You need to know that I love you and that I care about you and that I believe in you. And don't ever forget that." So even then, when I was nobody, he would go out of his way to help me get better. His vision, his dream for this college, the way he fought for it, the way he kept it alive during some very, very challenging, difficult times. I mean, we were a struggling two-year college. Went from 2-year to 4-year to master's degree during his leadership there. But it was his vision for this college that not only made a difference here locally on this campus, but also impacted this region. I believe Lindsey Wilson College would not be here today were it not for the leadership and the commitment and the vision that John Begley had for Lindsey Wilson College and his capacity to help other people believe in his dream and his vision. But I love John Begley. He is like a father to me. He's been my mentor, my dear friend. Doc, I love you, and thank you for all that you mean to this college and to the Luckies.
I think one of the first things I said when I came here was, whatever you vividly imagine, ardently desire, sincerely believe, and enthusiastically work toward will inevitably come to pass. I've said that because I believe that. I've practiced that philosophy, and I've seen that come true time and time again.
Would you join me in offering a grateful welcome to our keynote speaker, Dr. John Begley.
All right. Thank you. And thank all of you. You're looking at a blessed person. God has been so good to me. He's given me a chance to be a part of this great place. I get a lot of credit for things that have happened in my 20 years in presidency. And I hope that before this night is over, you will realize that it's got a lot to do with the fact that I knew when I came that Lindsey Wilson College had to have a strong faculty and staff. It needed a strong and generous board of trustees. It needed friends. It needed funds. And it needed freshmen. I knew how to do that. I thought I did. And it turned out I did. I couldn't have done it by myself. And I hope that you will sense even more at the end of this time together tonight than you do now, how important it was to face up to the reality of what we really needed. One of the things I hope I'm remembered for is bringing, or at least seeing potential in an admissions counselor we had in my early days. By the way, President Lucky has been at Lindsey almost as long as I have. I've been here 40 years. He's been here 35 years. Can you believe that? Pretty amazing. But at any rate, I saw potential in him as a young admissions counselor. And I finally promoted him to a director of enrollment management. And then vice president for development. And then vice president for administration. And then I stood back with great satisfaction when I saw the Lindsey Wilson College named, the Board of Trustees named him the 8th president of Lindsey Wilson College. That was one of the great moments of my entire administration when I saw that happen. Bill and Elise make a great president and first lady. And while I can look back and take great pride in some of the good things that happened during my 20 years, it is almost as satisfying to see what they've been able to do. Bill Lucky is a gifted president, and he has done a remarkable job taking Lindsey Wilson College to the next level. I thank God for what he has done. I'm a little bit overwhelmed by all of the attention I've gotten tonight, and I hope you'll help me to understand, or at least I can help you to understand that I didn't expect to get as emotional as I am, but I am emotional, and you just have to live with it because I can't. When I think about it, I was so pleased when he asked me if I would be the Founders Day speaker. I always wanted to be. I even wanted to be when I was president. And he finally was nice enough to invite me, and I'm glad to be here. But I'm placed in an uncomfortable situation. I'm probably the oldest person to ever speak at a Founders Day banquet. You're almost as old. But I'm pretty old. I remember one time when I invited someone almost as old as I am to speak at a homecoming banquet. It didn't turn out very well. I will never forget what happened. It was so many years ago that I can't remember the year. But it was before we had bigger sports center. And before we had this beautiful dining hall. We were having our meals in Hunley Hall. And we had all of our home basketball games at the Biggers at the Adair County High School gym. Our dinner that night was at 6 o'clock. The opening basketball game of the season was at 7:30. I introduced a speaker at 6:45. 40 minutes later, we were just getting warmed up. And so I leaned over and said to his wife, who was sitting next to me, I said, do you think he would mind if I told him that our ball game starts in 5 minutes? And she said, yes, I think he would mind. I thought she was saying, I think he's going to finish in time. He wasn't. He didn't. And when Lucretia and I got to the basketball game and to the Adair County gym, it was halftime. You need to know that I have too much respect for President Lucky and for all of you than to take advantage of the situation. But you also need to know that I have 100 stories I'd like to tell. I will not do it, but I surely would not do it. Maybe I can get invited back. Well, at any rate, my first time to be on the campus of Lindsey Wilson College was 47 years ago, and it was Founders Day. The year was 1971. The president, Dr. John Burns Horton, was the Founders Day speaker. His last few months in office were marked by turmoil, as some of you will remember. But to his credit, that night, he put all of that behind him and talked about the mission of Lindsey Wilson College. And here's what I remember that he was saying. He was saying that students who come to Lindsey Wilson College will forever live in a larger universe. I found myself getting emotional tonight when I listened to these two students speak. And I thought about Dr. Horton. And if I were to paraphrase what I heard the two of you saying was, for the most part, you were saying, we live in a larger universe because of Lindsey Wilson College. And then I got to thinking about all of you. We have, for the most part, everyone in this room is a donor. And the truth of the matter is, because of your gifts, and only because of your gifts, can students say that, because no college can provide the kind of help that students like ours need without donors. And you have to feel good when you sit down and write a check and send it to Lindsey Wilson College knowing that a Gabby Piles or a Patrick Atkins or someone very much like them will forever live in a larger universe because of your gift. That has to be one of the best investments of a person's gift dollars. I can't think of a better one than that. The mission of Lindsey Wilson College. I was working on time situations today and for the last several weeks, and I kept thinking, what can I get by not saying? But the truth of the matter is, those of you who know me know that I have never given a speech without talking about the mission of Lindsey Wilson College. We have a mission statement, but we are a college that doesn't just have a mission statement, we practice what that mission tells us to do. And what our mission says is that we are to serve the educational needs of students, which sounds pretty generic. But what we mean by that is more than just academics. We are certainly, that's the most important thing we do. But we believe that our students have needs other than just academic. That they have social needs and cultural needs and physical needs and spiritual needs. And so what sets Lindsey Wilson College apart from other colleges and universities is that we want to serve the whole person. Serving the educational needs in an atmosphere of active caring. Not just caring, active caring. We learned a long time ago that you can care for a student and the student will never know you care. But if you actively care for a student, you'll find a way to let the student know you care. Active care, Christian concern. We even talk about a living learning environment because we know that living-learning environment means what happens outside the classroom is also important. What happens in this dining hall? What happens at an athletic event? And even for those commuting students, what happens when they get home? It's part of our mission to try to help our students learn and grow and feel like a real human being. That's our mission. And I apologize for the extra 4 minutes I just threw in. And the Lord told me to do it. I start thinking about 1978. You know, as great as your mission is, colleges still, from time to time, hit a wall. And Lindsey, on more than one occasion, has struggled financially. But no more so than it did in 1978, my first year. I was elected president at Founders Day. It's always been a big day in the life of this college. It was for me, at least, that day. 2 days later, I learned that the United Methodist Church has 120, or had 120, I don't know how many they have now. 120 colleges and universities. And then I learned that Lindsey was one of 7 that had just been identified as not likely to make it. When I arrived on campus several months later, I also learned that there were all kinds of issues that we faced that were almost life-threatening for us in the immediate future. We had a great faculty, mission-driven, loved the place, great teachers. They didn't have a retirement program. They didn't have health insurance. And the highest paid faculty member was making less than $10,000 a year. I could talk for a long time about how bad things were, but you got some sense of that when you saw the video. What I want to talk about is where we are now. A lot of great things happened during my administration, and I think we've done a pretty good job telling you about that tonight, but I want to talk about what's going on now. President Luckey has been president the same number of years that I was president. And he has taken this college to another level. I mean, we are 100 times better off today than we were when I came. I'm not sure I even said that as well as I could have said it. It could be much more than that. We are a different place. And when I say that, I realize that what I'm talking about is that we have so much going for us. We have a lot of new buildings that have been built since 1998. You mentioned those buildings, so I won't have to. I talk about the ones that you built. pretty darn impressive. I mean, can you imagine the changes that have taken place on this campus over the last 40 years, but also even the last 20 years with the Jim and Helen Cubic Science Building, the Bob and Carol Gooden Nursing and Counseling Building, the Holloway Health and Fitness Center, the sports complex out on East 80, the 3 residence halls that have been built. I'm talking about within the last few years. Then I think about how the college has changed academically. We now have so strong academic programs that we are looked at with great admiration by even our peers in the higher education world. And all of that's been because President Luckey has placed his emphasis there, and it is paying off big time for us. What's ironic is that we've done so well that I sometimes get the impression that some people think, gosh, Lindsey doesn't need me anymore. And I want to speak to that. The more successful we become, the more dependent we will be on gift income. I don't think that will change. I don't even want to give you a hint that it might change. It hasn't changed at Harvard. It hasn't changed at Princeton. I don't know of any place where that's changed. And when you think about it, you'll understand why I say that. For instance, right now, Lindsey has 2,000 more students than it had in 1978. Our budget in 1978 was $600,000 a year. This afternoon, the Board of Trustees at Lindsey approved a budget of $60 million. Can you imagine that? We had a $600,000 endowment fund. Today, our endowment fund is $27 million. But because our budget has changed so much, we changed our goal and set a goal of $100 million and know that it ought to be $200 million. The Board of Trustees approved that recommendation by President Luckey. And one of these days, there are people in this room who will be at Founders Day when it is announced that Lindsey now has a $100 million endowment. I believe that. But in the meantime, make no mistake about it, we need your support as much now as we did in 1978. But there's more. I might say this. At this point in time, I was thinking about where do I go from here? And I was found myself thinking about what it was like when I was a child. I grew up in the home of my grandmother. 2 sisters. My sister Renee is sitting right here in front of me. We grew up in Mercer County, Kentucky. We lived with our grandparents, and my grandmother was a devout Christian. She believed that anytime the church door was open, we should be there. And it wasn't optional. I mean, it wasn't something it'd be like if you all go with me. We knew we were to be there. Now, I'm talking about Wednesday night. I'm talking about Sunday morning. I'm talking about Sunday night. I'm talking about the 2 revivals we had every year. some of them a week and some of them 2 weeks. It was different than it is now. I got thinking about those revivals, and I remember how the evangelist would always preach his heart out, and then if you saw him raise his hand, you knew what he was getting ready to do. And he would say, and now with every head bowed, and every eye closed, and no one looking around, and then he would start to give his invitation. I thought about that. I thought, wonder what I could do about that. And you'll be pleased to know that the more I thought of it, the more I thought, all I need to do is to thank you for what you're doing. And to encourage you to continue doing what you've been doing. And believe that God will bless you for what you're doing. And He will. I can promise you that. And because God blesses you, you on your own will look for a way to do even more for Lindsey Wilson College. I believe that is exactly what will happen at Lindsey Wilson College in the days that are ahead. I was tempted to recognize an awful lot of people. Tonight I wanted to. Better judgment tells me I shouldn't. But if I had time, and I don't, I really don't. I don't have time. You may, but I don't. Something tells me that there are in this room, when I said I had 100 stories to tell, I meant that. Because when I look out here and look at each table, I see someone I know. And each table reminds me of a story that's worthy of sharing. There's so many of you that I wish I had time to tell you personally from this lectern how much I love you and how much I appreciate what you have done and what you are doing and what you will continue to do for Lindsey Wilson College. What I want you to know is that this college is great not because of its presidents, and I say presidents. It is great because we have been blessed by people like you. And I'm talking about faculty, I'm talking about staff, I'm talking about trustees, I'm talking about donors. And I want you to know that John and the Creature Bagley love you, that God loves you, and that all of these precious students at Lindsey Wilson College, they know about you because we tell them about you, and they love you. God bless you for giving me an opportunity to be here tonight and to share my story and my love for you. God bless you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jim. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of our evening, and Sam Kiger from Elizabethtown, Kentucky, is going to give us our benediction. Sam is a junior in Human Services and Counseling and Christian Ministries.
Please join me in prayer. Lord, thank you so much for this evening that has been filled with laughter, friendships, community, and love. Lord, I thank you so much for the donors, the trustees, the students, the staff, and anyone else who has contributed to this college in a positive manner. Lord, we are so thankful for those things as students, because we would not be able to reach the goals that we have in mind without those things. As Dr. Bagley said, Lord, we are so blessed, and we do not understand how blessed we are by you, and none of these opportunities would be available without your doing. Lord, I pray that we would honor you as we disperse from this place. I pray that you would keep us safe, and I thank you again for this wonderful evening. It's in your holy name that we pray. Amen.